Hey, this is Samantha, Salmon, certified integrative nutrition coach and brain health licensed trainer. And today I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about entrepreneurship, emotional intelligence, and specifically the emotion of anger, which I'm intimately in relationship with and know very well. First, entrepreneurship. So I started my entrepreneurship journey back in 2010 in terms of writing a business plan and actually setting up a business, brick and mortar. And then 2011, having staff and really being a leader, having to manage people, operations, my workload, and balancing work-life balance, balancing relationships, like being in business partnership too with my husband, and managing having a marriage and having a business and all of that. And this thing, like I come from entrepreneurs, right? So my mom owned a small business as a hairstylist. She owned and had a salon for over 30 years she was doing hair. And my dad did work in corporate America, but he also, for a period while he was working, had a bar and had a building. He was a landlord. And then he left corporate America and started a real estate development company. Before he started the company, he was a realtor and then became a broker, started a development company. Anyway, so I come from parents who are entrepreneurs. My mother's father owned a sugarcane mill. Him and his brothers, that was their business until he got sick. And then that's how my grandmother ended up coming to this country. The same grandmother who, for those of you who've been following me for a long time, this is the grandmother who I talk about a lot, who had type 2 diabetes, and I basically grew up with her. So I come from a line of entrepreneurs. And I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, Queens Village. There are, like, everywhere you look are business owners, immigrants, people of color running businesses. So I come from this environment. But funny thing is, as a child, I always said, because my parents were so busy all the time, that I didn't really see them that much. Like my mom was really intentional about the Sunday breakfast, the Sunday brunch, I should say, because we did church in the morning and then we came back and then we had brunch together. And that basically was all of us sitting around the table, my dad watching his political shows, and we would all eat together. And then of course he would have Sunday dinner. And then Monday I come home from school and then I would spend, some time with my mom. When I got older, I was running around with her on Mondays too, go into the bank. That's when she would run her errands basically, because she worked basically Tuesday through Saturday, Sunday is church, and then Monday is do all the admin business stuff. So my parents were busy, and so I didn't really see them that much. And so I decided that they worked really hard and I don't want to work that hard, so I never want to be a business owner. And then that was me as a child. Fast forward now to 2010, I believe it was 2010, when my husband planted the seed of starting the Earth Healing Cafe. He sold me on the idea, and like I said, we were very passionate about this lifestyle. He sold me on the idea of opening this business, and then I went all in on that, which just goes to tell like how great he is. But for me personally, it's been a journey of growth and evolution. And I always say, because I heard someone say it, and this has been my personal experience over the past 14 years, is your business cannot grow beyond your own personal development. And I can say that from my own personal experience, because I stay talking about like the comfort zone, and it's because I know it intimately. Like I am in it. I'm a human having a human experience just like you all, right? And this is the human experience. You are in this comfort zone and there's this wall keeping you there in the safe space. And the other side of that wall is what you want, whatever that is for you. And sometimes the wall looks like a brick wall. But then when you really sit and inspect it, and this is the key part, you sit and inspect it, you realize it's glass and you can actually see what you want is on the other side. First, you have to sit and inspect, and that's the awareness piece. This is why awareness is really the first stage for any type of change. So like for me as a coach, one of the things that we are trained on is the trans-theoretical model of change. There's 5 stages of change. That first stage is pre-contemplation, and some people could be stuck there for a long time. That's when the person, they're not ready, they're not willing, they don't even understand that they have a problem, or maybe they see they have a problem, but they don't see any choice in the matter. They're stuck in a state of victimhood, basically. And once you can break free from that, right? You go from victimhood to empowerment with that awareness, right? When you see the brick wall at the edge of that comfort zone, this is like victimhood. I'm locked in this box. I can't see a way out. But when you sit and do some self-assessment and really pay attention, you'll see it's glass. That's the awareness piece. That's how you can see your path forward. And then you realize, oh, I actually have to go through the hard thing, go through this hard glass, get cut in order to get what I want. So now, like when I think about the concept of a high performing entrepreneur, because I am passionate about my business, I'm passionate about the mission of my business. And so in order for me to fully execute properly on this mission that God has placed in my heart, I have to become a different person. I have to step into that, which that may look like being a high performing entrepreneur. So what does this mean to be a high performing entrepreneur? It means that you maintain a high level of productivity, check, resilience, and innovation. Now, I could tell you one thing. Hopefully out there, I'm talking to other entrepreneurs, right, who are on the journey. You're most likely a health conscious entrepreneur, and that's why you're in my sphere and you landed on this video. Innovation comes from rest. We need to rest and be in a state of awe and inspiration for innovation to take place. And from my personal experience, right? I don't think innovation comes from a place of stress and cortisol. It just doesn't. Now, resiliency, the same, because there's a training I do on brain reserve where we talk about your capacity to be resilient during stressful moments. All has to do with brain reserve, which is actual tissue, extra tissue you have in the brain to be able to handle these stressful moments. We don't all come into the world with the same amount of brain reserve, right? This is where brain health really comes into play, because if you come in at a deficit, your resiliency meter is a lot lower than some other people who are playing the game of entrepreneurship, who you're in competition with. Or maybe you don't see them as competition, whatever. But we're all trying to get a thing done. And so our ability to make it happen, the speed at which we can make it happen, what I'm saying is this is all predicated upon the health of our brain and how we're catering it to it in the moment. So understanding that we don't all come into this world with the same amount of brain reserve, meaning we don't all have the same amount of resilience. So in order to be high performing as an entrepreneur, you need to have high levels of resilience, which means you really need to do the work on your brain to build that resilience. That's where the emotional intelligence comes into play. There's a physical aspect to this. Emotional intelligence, I largely have a little bit of an issue with it because it almost seems like it puts certain people on a pedestal when you say emotional intelligence. And I feel based on the science, they're really not deserving of that pedestal because this is something they didn't have a say in the matter. Like all of us, we don't have a say in the matter when we come into this world and we're given the microbiome we're given that was inherited from our mothers, and the brain reserve we have inherited from our ancestors, like what our mother did, what our grandmother did, the environments they were in, the people around them, the relationships they had. All of that is affecting fetal development and the development of the brain. If the baby's dad or grandfather or some brother, sibling, whatever, was inducing so much stress on this woman, that affects baby's brain, because the pregnant mother now is just full of all this cortisol hormones that is now bathing this developing brain. If there was smoking going on in the house, if there was mold in the environment, all of these things affect the developing brain. So we don't all come in with the same amount of resiliency. And so this is why I have a pet peeve with the whole term emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence is predicated upon the health of your brain. So now back to a high-performing entrepreneur. They constantly seek opportunities for growth and improvement. Now, from my vantage point and from my experience, this is the game. This is the game of entrepreneurship, is self-development work. And so understanding how to support your brain, how to support your mental health, supports the growth of your business. Because as we go back, you're in the safe space, and in order to get what you want in this life, whatever it is, either it's in your business, in your relationships, whatever, you have to step outside the safe space. But why is your safe space like this? Why is there that border on the safe space? This is an opportunity for growth in this area, right? That's how you break through that wall, when you actually look at it as an opportunity versus as an obstacle, challenge. I'm literally right now in the middle of doing a personal challenge for myself to intentionally trigger negative thoughts, because I know doing this thing is me. I'm going through the process, the action of breaking through that glass wall. And there is some roughness in that, right? Like, I'm putting my own brain and mental health through an exercise to get my brain into a place of negativity and distraughtness on purpose, to deal with what is coming up after. So in my program, I talk about naming the brain, naming your brain so you can have some psychological distance from it. In yoga, we call it like the monkey mind. So you name your monkey. My monkey is anxious Anna. Why is Anna so anxious? To get to what I want, I need to do this thing. And I'm not doing it because it's more comfortable inside the safe space versus breaking through the glass. But why? What happens if I break through that glass? How is anxious Anna gonna respond? I wanna test anxious Anna. I wanna see how she responds so I can deal with her, nurture her, because anxious Anna is basically that deep limbic area of the brain that is like, they call it, like you've heard probably maybe the terminology, the lizard brain, where you're just acting out in an emotional way. The prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain, is very logical, thinking through consequences and all of this kind of stuff. So anxious Anna lives in the deep areas of my brain. This area is formed very early on in the brain development. A lot of what is triggering the fear, basically, or the anxiety, has to do with early childhood experiences. And so in this process, in this exercise for myself, I have anxious Anna over here and my prefrontal cortex over here, which is my mature self. This is mature Sam, the prefrontal cortex. Anxious Anna is basically little Sam, or little Sam's fear, right? And in order for mature Sam, the prefrontal cortex, to deal with anxious Anna, she has to know what anxious Anna is going through. So I have to trigger the event. This is the opportunity. Now, the difference, there's two types of people, and I'm gonna tell you this because when I work with people, I notice something in my clientele, the folks who I love coaching, and the folks who, like, it feels like work when I coach them. Let's just put it that way. And the difference between these two groups of people is the growth versus fixed mindset, which is part of what I teach in my program. So I'm not expecting everybody to come in perfect. Obviously, I wouldn't have a business. I wouldn't need to exist. But I noticed that some people do come in and have that growth mindset. Like they have the struggles. Right now they're in the safe space. They see the brick wall. They can't see the glass, which is why they've come to me. Because with me, they see there's an opportunity to see something beyond what they've been able to see. I might be able to just point them in a direction where, you know, okay, you see a wall here, but look, there's a window right here. Actually, there's a glass door over here. But you didn't see that before because you weren't in right community and right conversation. That's what the coaching container allows for. So you can be in that place where you just see the brick wall and still have a growth mindset, because I've seen that. But the growth mindset has you seeing that wall as an opportunity. Okay, when you see the wall as brick, I need to take some time out. I need to rest. I need to meditate. I need to relax. Meditate. I could be meditating on the brick wall, or I can meditate to take my mind off the brick wall. Both of these things. I've seen, like in my clients, like even a trip, a vacation, just distance from the issue can bring so much enlightenment to show a path forward. The brain becomes new through this new experience, through inspiration from being in a new culture, a new environment, a new space, right? Around some different people. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, again, back to this idea of a high-performing entrepreneur. They demonstrate strong leadership qualities and decision-making capabilities. Now, decision-making capabilities, this is a prefrontal cortex activity. Leadership qualities has to do with the emotional centers of your brain, which this really inspires me to do a training on this in particular. I'm going to make a note for myself because I want to do a training on the brain and high performance entrepreneurship. I think that would be really fun. Another aspect to them, they inspire and motivate others within their teams or communities. Now, inspiration and motivation, that comes from deep personal development, right? You don't inspire and motivate others unless you have some level of self-awareness and you've done some personal work and growth. Another aspect of a high performing entrepreneur is they balance personal well-being with professional demands. Personal well-being. We're back to personal well-being. They integrate practices that enhance mental and physical health, like mindfulness, exercise, continuous learning. So when it comes to anger now, the emotion of anger now, I want to just say that when it comes to emotions, they serve a purpose. There's a cartoon movie that's out there, and what is it called? It's called Inside Out. And there's a second version that came out too that I want to see. I want to make sure I see these. Inside Out, I saw the first one, and actually it was the only reason I know about the first one is because I had a friend, she's now since passed, but a fellow coach. We graduated together, and at the beginning we were really meeting regularly just to shoot the breeze, talk about business, all this. And she had children, and she put me on to this movie, on the film, the first one, Inside Out, telling me about it, and it inspired me to watch it. It's basically about where they made a cartoon version of emotions and how it plays out in this young child's life. Basically, it's like a cartoon look at the brain, but specifically looking in at emotions. Inside Out 2 expands on that even more, paying attention to the female brain and the role it's playing, and it's really interesting. I don't think it's just for children. I think adults could benefit a lot from this. But one of the main reasons of why I'm bringing this up is that this film undergirds how important, like the two films, how important emotions play, especially now in the time of artificial intelligence. And we're trying to, as humans who labor to eat, we're trying to find our way in this time. How do we survive in this world with artificial intelligence? What is my role to play? What can I give to humanity that AI can't give? And what you can give is your humanity, basically, right? What makes us human are our emotions, and anger is one of them. Anger is a natural human emotion, okay? And for me personally, because I have a growth mindset, because I'm doing the work on myself, the emotion of anger to me is an indicator. Like when you're driving your car and you get that indicator light on that's blinking that you're about to run out of gas, right? Without this warning, you probably would get stranded in the middle of the street somewhere without any gas. But your car is giving you warning that, hey, this needs attention. This is how I see emotions. If the emotion doesn't really feel that good to you, or it's causing some physical pain, like for in my example, which I've talked about many times, having like this one specific time around my Thrive Through Food Summit where I was in the promotion phase of it, and I couldn't make this promotional live stream we were gonna do. It wasn't actually, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't Thrive Through Food Summit. It was the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit, my first summit. I couldn't make one of the promotional interviews because I was basically debilitated on the bed with some really severe cramps, some severe menstrual pain. And it was completely out of the norms for me because historically, my high raw vegan diet has very much served me very well. And not just that, actually exercise on top of it. Because even with the high raw, I was feeling some type of like weakness and some kind of pain, never on the level that I was feeling that time. But the workouts, consistent workouts, I noticed helped to keep that away so I could have experiences where it would come and go and it would be uneventful, right? No pain at all. But this time it was really severe. And so I was trying to think like, why now? Like, why did this happen? Going through what took place leading up to my my painful menstrual experience, and I pinpointed it was the feeling of rage, having a conversation with a family member that enraged me, and it came back to bite me in the ass basically, where the cramps came on me the same time I'm supposed to be live to promote my thing that I poured so much time, money, energy, effort into. And so this is how our health and emotions can really affect our businesses, right? But when I look at, so in my practice, when I look at anger is telling me I need to pay attention to something. So what it taught me in that moment is that, oh, this person got me so upset that I ended up in pain and I couldn't make one of my own promotional events. Which means I'm now a victim, right? This person, what they said, had enough control over me that it victimized me. I don't live a life of victimhood. So I took responsibility and said, okay, I need to work on the way I manage my emotions. So regardless of what people are saying, doing, whatever I'm perceiving they're thinking or judging me, whatever, doesn't affect my emotional state. I want to be calm. I want to be the peace within the chaos, right? The peace in the storm. And that's when so for me, anger serves a purpose, right? So anger can really slow down an entrepreneur in that it impairs decision making. Because when you have anger, you have hormonal changes happening in the body. And this is why I was having so much menstrual pain, because the anger surged cortisol and disrupted my sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. So now I'm having these really bad cramps. Whereas when you think about it this way, what we know about the brain is hormonal balance is essential for the health of your brain, to have stable moods. That includes not just your sex hormones, but also your thyroid hormones, right? And also your blood sugar levels. Insulin is also a hormone. So when you have high cortisol, it triggers insulin because your body feels like it's under attack. So it's going into a stress response, right? So this is how it can impair decision making, because now your hormones are out of whack. So blood flow is being constricted from different areas. The prefrontal cortex is where decision making happens. When we have anger, it can impair our decision making. It can damage relationships, even the ones that have nothing to do with why you're angry. And I know you probably had the experience where one person triggers you to anger and someone else happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. And now your anger for this person, what they said now, is spewing on other people, right? Like this toxic gas, right? Just spreading. Anger can reduce focus and productivity. So how do you tame that back? Because we're not going to not be human and not have anger. How can you go through a situation where someone triggers you to anger, you can handle your stuff and get right back to work and be productive and be on plan, be on mission? Anger can increase stress and burnout to the point where you could have burnout to the point where you end up in feelings of depression, that chronic low mood, because you're fatigued. Because literally, like I had someone on one of my trainings talking about adrenal dysfunction or something like that. Anyway, it had me thinking about adrenal fatigue, which the medical system doesn't really like to admit is a thing, but it's basically a thing. When you are in a state of chronic stress for such a prolonged period of time, it's like how the pancreas works, right? The pancreas, when you consume sugar, the pancreas releases insulin. Now, if you are consuming such high amounts of sugar, picture those people that are on YouTube just gorging on processed foods, right? And these sweet treats, and they're eating thousands upon thousands of calories a day, and they're just beyond obese, morbidly obese. When you're at that level of obesity, you are in a constant state of high insulin resistant, high insulin surges, blood sugar just off the lid, right? Just crazy readings. The body is in a chronic state of stress. So eventually the pancreas won't make any more insulin because it's so burnt out, fatigued or whatever. It's just, right? The same thing with the adrenals. The adrenals produce cortisol. And so if the adrenals are producing cortisol and you're in a state of chronic stress for so long, you can get to a place where you're completely fatigued. And so this manifests. Some folks tell me they're wired but tired, that burnout, that adrenal fatigue. I think I did a talk about this with Afro Vegan Society some years ago. But this is how this can manifest, right? So like you're just exhausted. You can be exhausted from your emotional state, being in this really stressful, high stress state for a very prolonged period of time. And then obviously you can have, if anger not properly managed, it can have a negative impact on your reputation, and how you show up in the world is really important. So for me personally, here is how I handle it. Here's how I deal with the emotion of anger as someone who is driving change, who has decided to be a leader, right? At the moment I decided to leave the Bay Area and open a brick and mortar, I made a decision to step up into leadership. Was I ready for that or not? Who knows? But I decided, right? Physically, by leaving, going cross country, investing lots of money, and doing the thing. So I threw myself into that with a decision. And for some of us, especially as entrepreneurs, you can be so far into a decision that there's the option of turning back. It just doesn't, it's not a thing, right? There's no option. There's no option to turn back. If we're gonna be in leadership, we might as well work on being the best we can be in that leadership. And so how do we handle this natural human emotion of anger? First, like I said, you have to acknowledge it, see it for what it is. It's a sign that you need to pay attention to something. And pay attention to it. Find out what the root of that thing is, because the root is going to help you get to your next level. The next level you need to be to really step into the identity of who it is you're trying to become. So now for me, what has helped me is journaling. I love to journal. And so I think through these thoughts, but I actually put them down on paper so that I can make sense of them. I identify the triggers. Obviously, if I'm getting angry, what triggered that anger? Why did that trigger the anger? And that why gets me to a place of, okay, so how can I resolve this issue? Because the why is the issue, right? It's not like the fact that I got angry is the issue. No, it's the why did I get angry? Who caused it? What situation caused it? Why would that person or situation caused it? How can I do my own deep healing work to avoid this from triggering me in the past? This is what we do in my Conquer Your Cravings program, right? Because this is a part of it. Because what ends up happening with folks is you get triggered and it's so easy to run to the comfort food. And now I'm gonna tell you, like, in the raw food world, there are ways to do comfort. But as a high raw vegan, you have your comfort fixes. So like for me, the cooked starches provide a level of comfort, fake comfort actually, but with the cooked starches, they weigh you down, right? So that weighing down, there's a gut component and a brain component. And so quickly I'll explain it like this. Basically, when you have cooked starches, it's fiber food. Your gut bacteria is making short chain fatty acids that affect your emotional state. But also with these foods, you would notice it's not just cooked starches, but the high glycemic cooked starches shut down basically the prefrontal cortex and also calms down the anterior cingulate. The anterior cingulate is part of your the frontal lobe, right? So your frontal lobes basically dim. And it doesn't completely shut it down, but it dims it down. So whatever, if I'm saying this now, so as I'm saying it, you're probably like, oh yeah, I've had that experience, right? Let's say you're mad about something. That thought is sitting on your anterior cingulate as a worry going over and over again. I know I've had coaching sessions with people like, I'm not able to sleep to get at least 7 hours because I am in a state of constant worry. I have this issue that's resting on me, and it rests there, you keep thinking about it. It's like a hamster on a wheel. And the hamster never gets off the wheel. But when you eat these very dense foods, these calorie-rich, high glycemic foods, it drops blood flow to these areas. It allows actually these areas to calm down where you may have the thought, but it's numb. So you are, in fact, feeding your feelings. This is how we're able to use food as drugs, you know? And if you can start to actually pay attention to how food is making you feel, you'll start to make these connections for yourself. So understanding that there's a gut component to foods, there is a mental component to it. You can have some compassion for yourself through the whole thing. But even as you're experiencing anger, have some compassion for yourself. This type of thing can tend to run us to unhealthy foods or foods that aren't going to help us reach the goal we're looking to achieve. And when you're committed to staying on plan with your nutrition plan or to stepping up into a high performing leader, you want to just have some compassion for yourself, see it for what it is, continue to stay on plan, but do the work of addressing it. So this is where we get to the second part, is reframe your perception of the disappointment. Maybe you are disappointed in yourself because you got angry, or you're angry because someone disappointed you, or you had a disappointment, there was some kind of upset. But if you can reframe the situation, you can detach yourself from the emotional charge. So what does this look like? This means setting healthy boundaries, communicating assertively. For me personally, if I have the feeling, let's say, so I'm in the feeling of anger, the first thing, my prefrontal cortex comes online, is like, whoop, time for me to pay attention. Okay, we need a break. This is my prefrontal cortex. We need a break. So I separate myself from it. I will go to the bathroom. I will go take a walk. I separate myself from whatever the trigger is so I can start doing my nervous system regulation, deep breathing, reflection, meditation, whatever. And I have to communicate assertively. Instead of me yelling, I need to run out. No, I'm saying, I need to take a break. I'm taking a break. I need a moment, whatever, to separate myself. Communicate assertively, right? To state my needs. I'm stating them without apology. And really for me, it's like this, because I'm in the state of anger, it could escalate. But I'm practicing my own power and agency because I have two choices. I can escalate it or I can de-escalate it by allowing my prefrontal cortex to take control and separating myself. So I can cater to my own nervous system needs in that moment. And so I communicate assertively, separate myself. I reflect. What did I learn from this experience? If it happens again, how can I do better? How can I show up better? How can I support my own body better? These are some of the things we're working through. Then, channeling that anger into creative energy. For me personally, it manifests, this is where I love physical activity, okay? Exercise is how we manage our emotions. When it comes to the anterior cingulate being overactive, one of the things that helps pacify it, that is non-food, is distraction. So when I separate myself, that's me distracting. I could listen to music, that's me distracting. I could watch Netflix. This is where Netflix serves a role in your self-care practice. That's distracting, that helps to calm the anterior cingulate. Or I can take myself to the gym and push some heavy weights, right? Anger, I find that anger helps me a lot when it comes to lifting heavy because I'm able to lift heavy and it doesn't feel hard. It's like my easiest strength training day. I get the most out of my workout. So it has, whereas like you could take this negative experience and turn it into something really positive. Or maybe you want to jump on the treadmill and just walk or run or whatever it is for you. Maybe it's kickboxing or whatever. You can start a passion project, whatever it is, to channel that energy. Maybe it's to write a book. Maybe this whole experience inspired something within you. I know, like, I work with people and I've had personal experience of folks who are dealing with microaggressions, racism in the workplace, and things of that nature. And they're learning so much. There's the anger, right? Like, how could this be? How could we be living in 2024 and still going through this? There's that anger, but then you could turn that anger into a passion project where maybe you write a book, you write an article for a local publication, something. Some people take up a camera and become directors because they're so angry about something. My summits came out, specifically the first one, came out of a little bit of, it first started off as anger, turned into frustration, and then I realized I need to do something about it. Don't be pointing the finger at other people. What are you doing? That's what birthed the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit. That was my passion project that came out of that. Thrive Through Food Summit, really because Dr. Daniel Amen's book, The End of Mental Illness, really changed my life. It changed how I perceived the world and other people. And it made me, like, empathy, I felt, has always been a strong muscle in me, but my empathy muscle got way bigger after reading that book. I have understanding. That doesn't mean that it makes it easier to deal with certain people. Like, you have that understanding, but some people, you're still going to get triggered. Even if you understand, you're still going to get triggered. But this is an opportunity to just self-express, and it helps to calm the brain down. And who knows, that self-expression just could be a thing. I was listening to this guy recently on YouTube, and I decided to get his book. I haven't read his book yet though, but I decided to get his book. I'm trying to see. Dan Martell. This guy, Dan Martell. I heard him in an interview talk about, because he's an entrepreneur, he has all these businesses or whatever, and he wrote a book, but he was talking about why he wrote the book he wrote, and it was because he was hearing all these conversations around him, and his style is not really to judge people necessarily in real time to their face. So he decided to put all of, like, his thoughts, feelings, opinions about all these people, what they're doing, these entrepreneurs, how they're basically holding themselves back, into this book. And he just put it out there because of these 30 people that he was in community with. And he didn't realize that it was going to pop off and be a huge thing. It actually became a huge driver to all his companies that he invests in, and his partners in those companies ended up benefiting from it, to the point where he decided to go all in on this with social media and all this stuff, basically backing the book, because the book is bringing in all these leads. But the book was a response to a frustration, right? So this is where you can turn, again, a negative feeling into positive. Create art, create something. It could be a book, it could be a summit, it could be a painting, whatever. But this helps you process the thing, calm down from the thing, but also create something useful out of it. Because I find that God puts certain situations on our path for our own spiritual development. We can choose not to handle it. You could stay in the anger and be perpetually angry, and then you're just like toxic now in every space because you're so angry. You only spit anger to other people. And I know there are people dealing with this. I've heard like some online people talk about some of the messages that come to them. And it's because you're dealing with angry people. There are people out there, many people out there, most people out there do not have healthy brains for a variety of reasons. They don't have healthy brains. They're in love with their anger. They want to hold on to their anger. When I say anger is a natural human emotion, it serves a purpose. I'm not saying hold on to it, keep it with you, and just live in that. No, you definitely don't want to live in that. That could manifest into disease that will eat you alive. Right now in the medical system, we call that autoimmune because the doctors don't really know what to do with this. It manifests as fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, all of these things from deep-seated anger. So there are consequences to being chronically in this state. You want to do the work to grow from that, to move beyond that. It doesn't mean anger will never show up again, but you just need the tools to deal with it. Fourthly, practice radical acceptance. This is it. Like, acceptance of whatever it is that triggered you, which this is the area where I'm constantly working. I don't know if there's an end zone to get to, but I'm constantly working and building my muscle of radical acceptance. There's certain things I've been able to accept that took me a long time to get there. There are other things I'm still working on accepting, right? This is part of my journey right now. And the tools that I'm using, meditation. Also in my program, we have hypnosis, which I've also done and utilized. Mantra repetition, affirmation, releasing control, basically, like understanding that you can't control other people. You can't, there are a lot of things you can't control, even with our health. And when we talk about health and I talk about mantras, I accept what I cannot change. There's the loving kindness meditation I have in my program. It's something that I think I mentioned on one of the videos I have as part of my morning ritual. It's like this, where you're repeating certain mantras, right? This on top of the affirmations that I run through will help me a lot. And this process of releasing control, I feel like I have no issues with this in particular, except the fact that I release control in terms of putting a deadline or a timeline on when I get to the place where I'm not ever triggered by other people, what they say and do. You know, I'm doing the work and I'm seeing major progress. I've seen major progress, leaps and bounds in terms of my own resiliency. And yet, there are times when I get triggered and anger comes up, and I have the tools to handle it. I also know how to address it. I know what to do with that opportunity when it does come up. I released the control of getting to a place where it's never going to be an issue. This is just part of the journey. It's part of the work, and it's going to manifest the way it manifests ultimately. The final thing I want to say on this, as you're going on this journey, you want to seek support and connection. Everything I'm speaking of is in my program, my Conquer Your Cravings program. And I got here into this learning and understanding from my own development. And that's being in connection with other people. So some of the things that I have done in support of myself: therapy, coaching. Obviously, I'm a coach who hires coaches. I believe in coaching. I love coaching. I think coaching is very beneficial. I have a group, my group on Facebook that's free, and also my clients, they're in a group as well. And being in groups, like when I was doing project management work for the 10 Million Black Vegan Women Initiative, being a part of that community was very transformational for me. To see all these women that look like me, that actually cared about their health, was something new for me. I had never really been in an environment like this. And it was healing for me, coming from the family that I come from and the experience I've had with my family. That experience with 10 Million Black Vegan Women was healing for me. So support groups are very beneficial. Also, sharing your story. When I wrote my book, You Can Afford to Be Healthy, that first chapter, I cried writing that first chapter. It was like a purge. It was a releasing of something. And that's also part of the journey of entrepreneurship. It's work. And a lot of the work has to do with us, because the job itself, a lot of us are really good at what we do. I feel like I'm a really good coach. I have the skill set of coaching. At the same time, the business cannot run only on the skill set of coaching. The business runs by being really great with marketing, being great with sales. The sustainability is predicated upon having great operations, infrastructure, tech stacks, since I'm an online business, having some team support. There are many facets to this, right? That's the business needs all of these things. And so you really have to step up into leadership in order to do that, in order to manage that and do all of that. There is development work, because all this other stuff is all tasks that need doing. But the real work is within you as a leader. So even when I'm not talking to entrepreneurs and I'm talking about stepping up into healthy food leadership for your family, for yourself first, and then for your family, that is the journey really for all of us. It's just some of us, the vehicle that we're being called to drive into this self-development work is health. Because God either put us in a health crisis or put us in a family that's all suffering from a health crisis that somehow is pressing on our souls so much we need to do something to address it. So this is the vehicle for us in this period of our life. For some other people, finances is the vehicle, right? And this is where they have to pay attention. For other people, there's exercise or spiritual development or whatever it is, work, career, whatever that thing is. We get an opportunity always in this life to grow spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, so we could get to that next step, so we could get to what it is that we want. Anyway, I've gone on too long already. I hope this episode has been impactful and helpful for you. When I talked about earlier having the right tools to support your brain, part of that is the nutrition piece. So you should come on over to rawfoodmealplanner.com and get some support on that level. I also have some resources in the description to this video. Coming up, I'm doing a 21-day meal prep challenge focusing on immunity and cognitive health. And it's a completely raw food challenge. So if you wanted to get your feet wet or just give your brain and body a detox, then check out this challenge. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side.